You're very welcome back to the Daily Rundown with me, Fiona Fox. I've been joined by Stephen Durrant and David Semple for the evening, helping out with the news. So we were just before the break talking, we were reacting rather to that news package that That's TV have put together based on the London or the changing schools, all schools to academies, and it will be all schools based on last week's.
So they say, unless
budget.
they U-turn again, because they've U-turned a couple of things on the budget so far. So
and
they won't U-turn on that one.
So
why not? Sorry.
David, what do you think? Just from a
first thing was they wanted to have variety in schools, and then you're switching into academies. I don't personally know the difference between a comprehensive, a terrible name. They should call them high schools, and an academy. That's the Labour Party for you, Crossland. I don't know the difference between those schools, but an academy, the first academy I saw was ADT College in Putney. They used to actually put the name of the company on it. That wasn't back in the days of the Lord Tony Blair. And my view of it is why roll? I think it's a waste of money. I don't think whatever you call a school and say, yeah, with an academy, I'd love to own one because then I could sell off the tennis court, make a bit of money, and
that's what it's about.
Make a lot of money. But the truth is, I don't know if that's leading to it's the content of the education that counts, not the school. Now I'm going to sound very reactionary here and say, my cousin who went to a secondary modern school, right, because he failed his 11 pass, he still got A in O levels, by the way. He said it was crap. Prefers the old grammar school and secondary modern. Well, perhaps those should have been upgraded. And I see nothing wrong with having a system of grammar schools and high schools.
Even that has more variety.
That gave a lot of opportunities. All the people I worked with in the film industry, apart from a few public school boys, were all people who'd done well from working class backgrounds out of grammar schools. And these people became Prime Minister. Harold Wilson, James Callaghan, John Major.
Our own Tony Lloyd.
Yes, they're all grammar school boys. And now we've got pubic school boys again in with David Cameron and what's his name? Tony Blair. And it seems to me that grammar schools gave a greater opportunity for people to climb the ladder. And now the public schools are getting, although they don't have a monopoly in Oxford and Cambridge anymore because they don't necessarily have better results. Public schools compete with dumb people.
Oxford and Cambridge intake is still 50% from paying.
The point is, I would have preferred a system like that. To turn them all into academies seems to me a complete waste of time. So I disagree with the government's policy.
So what's driving it?
Whereas I don't mind the free school thing at all, where you get money from, because I think that gives more variety. What's driving it? Sometimes I think our politicians. Well, I'm a conservative, and I'm not exactly a left-wing conservative, but it seems to me corporatism. I think one of the things as a liberal conservative that I don't believe in is mixing government and state. I'd have a very small state and a very large private sector.
Right? It's accountable at the moment, isn't it?
And it seems to me that a lot of our government money is being put through corporatism, where we're basically supporting corporations that wouldn't otherwise succeed. And I want the private sector to be the private sector, and I want the public sector to be small, like Ron Paul, and public. And it seems to me that this mixing up of the two in academies is just another stupid management consultant
really
thing
the worst
from that generation of politicians who never did anything.
And the teachers and the management end up being that type as well.
Surely the worst abomination of it all is the mixing of, as you said, corporatism and education in any way.
And the private sector and the public sector together.
Sorry, is there a worry, surely, that there'll be an agenda there now? And obviously the driving force behind education should be the good of the future, the schools.
They're not interested in that. They're
interested. Would you be worried about an agenda that we now have, businesses sort of?
I'm not worried about it. It's happening. I mean, I don't have to worry about it happening. It's happening. I just don't know where to go with it. I mean, to be quite frank, this will sound like a horribly middle class thing to say, but most of the best educated kids I know and well raised are homeschooled. As someone who works in the school sector an awful lot, I'm very sceptical of how education is now and how it's going. It's getting even worse. Yeah.
And down the line, do you feel like we might move away that parents will be disillusioned?
Of course.
That they will want to homeschool.
That's the idea, but also they'll want to go to private as well, which is part of the idea. That's the same as deconstructing the NHS to send people private.
That's
very possible. That's very possible. Yeah.
All of my friends who are immigrants send their children to private schools. Okay, they will. I had people working for me from Sri Lanka and India and other places, they try and get the children to private schools because they don't have any confidence in the state sector.
Which is a shame, because there's a lot of good
state
schools.
sector is the one that needs the work in this country, which is why I think from Crossland onwards, all the education reforms have been a complete disaster.
There's a lot of good state schools and a
years.
lot of very dedicated teachers, but the stress that they're being put under now with all this tick box stuff and the Ofsted and just the amount of paperwork, and you're scrutinised and micromanaged in how you teach. There's no room for improvisation. There's no room for genuine education, basically. There's no room for just sitting back and enjoying a book for the sake of the book being there. It's all got to be to some scheduled test or other. And yet the education standards aren't going up by this tick box mentality.
They're going
it's
down.
garbage. Yeah.
They're going
and
down.
Labour started bringing that in, and I don't know why the Tories are stuck with it, because they said they wouldn't. And
also, I mean, as you said there as well, or as we saw in that clip, the money that is just not going anywhere near the teachers.
No, of course not.
Maybe it would make some sense if it did somehow, but it definitely isn't.
No.
So it will be interesting to see how this rolls out. I think over the next
plenty more to come.
And my final comment is, I hate to see the Tory party going so left wing, where they abandon the principles of the free market and try and rig things up for.
This is the principles of the free market. It's handing over the state to the free market.
No. You keep the state small. The point is here: what is public, and they shouldn't be wasting our money. And this thing is a waste of the taxpayers' money.
It's very right-wing behaviour.
I don't believe in wasting one penny.
Okay, let's move on to our next one. Thanks for that, gentlemen. I have a feeling you could have stuck on that one now for the rest of the show. Two of the suicide bombers who carried out attacks in Brussels on Tuesday have been named as brothers. Both of them were Belgian nationals. So-called Islamic State has said it was behind the attacks. Belgium is observing 3 days of national mourning at the moment. Now, obviously, this brings the focus onto ourselves here in the UK. What do we think? Do the UK... Unfortunately, the same question we've asked ourselves a few times last year, I think, David, probably on shows that we've both been on.
Is there anything in the
UK? We're on high alert. I mean, is there anything we can do to prevent these attacks happening?
You can't prevent anything, but obviously they have done stuff to prevent attacks in Manchester, in London, and a lot of other places. Yeah. We have competent intelligence services.
By and large, yeah.
There's a different thing. There's this whole community in Brussels, which goes back 40, 50 years, which we don't have that level of... a sort of ghettoization in the UK that they had in Belgium, in Brussels. We will get attacks eventually. It happened before, it's going to happen again, and what can you do? It seems to me that because we don't integrate, certain immigrant communities like the Pakistani community, they don't want to integrate. They want to keep a lot of them. No, I'm telling you now.
To say the least.
No, I'm telling you, a lot of them don't want to integrate, and the second generation or the third generation becomes more religious than the original people who came.
Well, I think Steve's right there. We do have to be careful about overgeneralising.
It's not. It's not just. It's actually based on my own witnessed experience.
Well, it's based on my own witnessed experience.
Fair enough, but mine. Like I was saying, I work in quite a few schools, and generally speaking, there are a lot of schools where I work in where there's quite a large white, pink contingent, quite a large sort of Afro-Caribbean contingent, quite a large South Asian contingent, and they do generally get on. And actually, although you might call it retreat into a reactionary obsession with their faith or whatever, or feel alienated, and then get jumped on by the Prevent programme for having an opinion, in actual fact, generally speaking, most people do integrate. And certainly where I teach, it may be different out in other parts of the country, I think there's a great difficulty in, there's a risk of alienating people by they'll see stuff like this on the telly and think,
my own experience of living in South Manchester, there's no integration.
I live in South Manchester as well.
Yeah, and in my neighbourhood, they're walking around speaking Urdu.
But hang on a second. So what point are you making of that?
The point I'm making is
because the question is, how can we kind of stop attacks on the UK?
The mosques are radicalising people initially. The mosques.
Across the board, all mosques?
Not a lot of the mosques. The Saudi-financed mosques.
Now you're on to
Clarendon Road.
Now you're on to something. I don't want to get specific because apart from anything else, we don't just broadcast in Manchester here, so people won't know where that is. But I think you are on to something when you mention the S word there. and we've talked about this plenty of times, I cannot believe that we have a government that continually condemns violent so-called Islamic extremism and arms the Saudi government.
I completely agree.
I cannot believe that the headquarters city of NATO was bombed yesterday, and there is a NATO member, Turkey, that is in bed with ISIS, Erdogan's son, Erdogan's daughter, up to their absolute necks in it, and we blithely carry on as if this isn't an issue. Meanwhile, the Russians are saying that the sort of increasing Cold War vibe is actually decreasing our ability to cooperate with them. I'm not a big fan of Putin, etc., although it's arguable that Putin has done more to defeat ISIS in a few months in Syria than the Americans miraculously managed to do with their, protege, shall we say, that emerged from some very murky stuff going back the last 10 years when they were saying, as the CFR were saying, 2 cheers for Syrian Islamists. And what I'm alluding to here is the fact that a lot of what is currently now ISIS was kind of shoved along and nudged by the CIA. Well, ISIS, right? It's very, very murky indeed, and we don't address any of these issues. Instead, we just come out with the same blithe condemnations, which is right to do, and the same blithe sympathy, which is right to do, without looking at the core issues.
Yeah, but the core issue here is the Saudi financing of mosques around the world. They're pouring money into mosques in this country, teaching the Salafi Wahhabi ideology, which is a literalist interpretation of Islam.
And a Wahhabist ideology that was sponsored by the UK back in the day.
That's a myth. That's a myth.
Is it indeed?
That's a myth of history.
We'll get on to that.
We'll talk about that another time. The Ottomans never got on with the Saud family, who promoted the Wahhabis. And yes, obviously, we've allowed Saudi Arabia far too much influence in this world since the 1956 Suez Crisis. The Americans didn't help there when they told the Saudis to cut off oil to the UK purposely.
And the French were up to their necks in that botch up as well.
No, I'm saying the Americans, they were at war with the English during Suez, and they told the Saudis to cut off the oil. They were in bed with the Saudis, Aramco and them, and the Saudi mosques have bought a lot of, the Saudi government has bought a lot of properties around the world. They're like the Bourbons. They're going to waste all their money. They're going to go bankrupt eventually. But they bought assets everywhere, and they, more than anything, are responsible. I know the internet. For the seeds are laid by Saudi Arabia.
I'm going to have to make you hold that point, Steve, because we're going to have to go for a quick break. Sorry for interrupting you. We're going to go for a second quick break. We'll be back and we'll finish the discussion in just a few minutes.